There are now nearly 1 million Australian homeowners suffering from serious mortgage stress who, despite cutting back wherever they can, simply don't have the income to keep up with their loan repayments. But those already doing it hard are about to do it a whole lot harder, thanks in part to the banks who lent them their mortgages in the first place. The last couple of weeks have brought two grim and ominous headlines. Bank data shows that nearly a half of all homeowners trying to refinance their mortgages are being knocked back. Compare that to only 5% a year ago. And now some banks are doing what many prayed would never happen, making the mortgage pain even worse by raising interest rates. Data scientist Martin North.
A lot of people bought in relatively recently with massively large mortgages, highly leveraged. The banks were way too loose in their lending standards. So we have a lot of people with not much wriggle room now. You can't refinance because nobody will refinance you. You can't sell the property because there's not enough equity. I mean, that's a nightmare scenario, but it's not completely unrealistic.
So you think it's very clear that so many of the people that we see on the brink now have almost been set up to fail by the bank?
There is no doubt that they've got loans they should never have got.
Some people can afford to sit, others can't. The ones that can't afford to sit should effectively sell.
Get out while you can?
Get out while you can, absolutely. Get out while you can.
Jamison Lautet is a leading liquidator, the last port of call when owners default or banks call in their mortgages. It's a good business in bad times.
Mortgage resales have certainly increased, and I think it's reflective of the banks realising that property prices are going to deteriorate.
But you think if the banks can do the mortgages over and cover their own backside, they're happy to do so?
I think the banks are going to cover their own arse. And I think that realistically, if they foresee that they can get their money back before everyone else, then they will do so.
A reality check is coming.
I think the reality check is coming, and I think it's not too far away. The question is, how big is the cliff?
First off the cliff will be homeowners and investors with interest-only loans. 70-year-old John Norris was about to retire on the rent from a small portfolio of investment properties in Adelaide. He'd bought them with interest-only loans, which he'd been paying faithfully. Then he got a letter from his bank.
So that's it. That's the notice that no more interest only.
That's right.
The bank suddenly switched his loans to interest and principal.
Now, how much does that mean your repayments go up each month once you get that notification?
Well, that increased by 57%.
Your monthly repayments?
Monthly repayments, yes, which was pretty staggering. We didn't budget for that.
Is it feasible? Can you do that?
Well, no, we've struggled since then, and we've been back to the bank 2 or 3 times to negotiate with them. But at this stage, they're playing hardball and sticking by their guns. So I've been involved in property most of my life, and
Johnny's now forced to sell his properties if he can and go back to work. His retirement plan, a bitter dream. Have the banks shown much compassion in the way they've dealt with you?
no, they haven't shown any compassion whatsoever.
Johnny's a casualty of banks calling in the interest-only loans that they so freely offered until recently. His mate, property investor Bushy Martin, is mad as hell.
You've seen John, you've seen his wife. What's it done to them?
Devastating, Tom. Absolutely devastating. And they feel helpless in relation to being able to do anything because no one's listening.
There'd be thousands upon thousands of people across Australia in the exact same boat as John right now. Retirees who thought they were just about there and now whack. Completely different game.
Absolutely. So for no fault of their own coming up to the finish line, they've been very severely penalised, and it's having some major anxiety and stress impacts and financial impacts on people's lives at a point when they should be really enjoying them.
Perhaps the biggest pointer that a crash could be coming is the behaviour of the banks. In the course of covering this story, real estate industry insiders have told us the banks want to keep foreclosure sales secret at all costs. In fact, the order went out explicitly on foreclosure sales that we requested to film. Do not talk to 60 Minutes. Put simply, the banks don't want us to know just how bad things really are. It's just one more dirty secret from the banks. Market analyst Louis Christopher. Why do you think the banks are so secretive about how they deal with these foreclosures?
Well, I think they're trying to stop anger, resentment towards them, potentially stop any type of panic that's out there. But at the same time, I think as a community, we are owed at least a little bit more transparency in terms of what is going on.
The fact is that the banks know that we're on the edge of a potential precipice. On pretty much every metric that you can think about, we have way more debt than we should, and we're sleepwalking into a crisis next year, in my view.
Hello, I'm Tom Steinfort. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.